Thank you, Erica. Now we are going to talk about other program requirements, and those include civil rights compliance, utilizing USDA foods, records retention, and information on the Nutrition Services website. So let's move to the next slide, Erica. Civil rights compliance. The "And Justice for All" poster must be visible in the student service dining area and in all locations where meals are served. So, for example, if meals are sent to preschool classrooms, the poster must also be displayed. Now, the poster that is on the slide is the most current poster our office has received from the national office. So that poster needs to be visible. If you need to order additional posters, you can go to the home page of the Nutrition Services website and complete an order form. But as of now, that is the most current poster that has been released. Another requirement for civil rights is all staff involved in the school nutrition programs must receive annual training on civil rights that is documented with the date of the training, the title of the training, and the individual names and positions, and if needed, the amount of CEUs or the length of time the training took for the number of CEU hours. This training is available on the Nutrition Services website under the Forms and Resource tab titled Civil Rights. We have training, and there's also a training link to the Institute of Child Nutrition Civil Rights training. But all staff that are involved in the school nutrition program must receive annual training. So this would be a good back to school training before the school year starts. Staff that are hired during the school year also need to have this training. So for food service staff that start during the school year, you need to ensure that they are trained in civil rights. Next slide. The most current non-discrimination statement is included in your handout packet, and it's displayed on the slide. This is a civil rights summary that's in your handout packet on pages 106 and 107, but the current non-discrimination statement is in the red brackets, and it needs to be on all program material where you are describing participation in the school meals program, the full statement. As of now, that is the current statement. We hope to receive some further guidance in the future on the statement, but this is the statement that needs to be used now. And once again, for our non-public schools that have a religious exemption, the information that's in the bracket of the non-discrimination statement does not have to be included at the current time. So let's move to the next slide. So once again, I mentioned the full non-discrimination statement must be included in program information provided to households. So that includes the free and reduced price meal application, which it is on the templates that our office provides on the approval and denial letter, the notice of change in benefit letter, information on the SFA website and literature provided about the program. The full statement must be included in the student handbook at the end of the section that addresses the school nutrition program, so the section that addresses your school meals program. And on menus, you may utilize the shorter statement, which is this institution is an equal opportunity provider. So let's talk about the USDA Foods Program. And once again, I want to mention that that's administered by the Department of Health and Human Services. We have Brian and Sterling's contact information on our directory. Brian is the food program coordinator, and Sterling Williams is a specialist that works with the USDA program. We work closely with that office. Schools receive entitlement dollars for the purchase of domestic agricultural food products in schools and institutions. These dollars that schools are entitled to need to be used annually. It's a use or lose. If you don't utilize your entitlement, it does not roll over to the next year. You would want to make sure your contact information is current with the office. And so if you are a new bookkeeper or a claim contact, a food service director, an authorized representative, you would want to contact the USDA Food Program office to ensure that they have updated contact information. And so please do that. We'll move to the next slide. Record retention. School nutrition program records must be retained for 3 years plus the current year. So 3 years plus the current. So our current school year is 25-26. So the school years that are listed on the slide, those records need to be retained and readily retrievable. They don't need to be stored directly in an office, but they need to be on-site, readily retrievable. And so it's really any records that pertain to the support of the claims that you have received to substantiate. That would be production records indicating meal pattern has been met. All the documentation to support the amount of federal dollars that a school has received needs to be retained on site. If you use a software system, please ensure that there is a backup system to that information that is readily retrievable. So records older than school year 22-23 can be discarded unless your SFA has a longer record retention policy. They are the property of the SFA and need to be readily retrievable. So please don't be storing any records off-site that aren't readily retrievable. When someone leaves, we need to ensure that those records remain on site. That would include production records, recipes, anything to substantiate meal pattern, student records need to be retained on site. Next slide. So other program requirements. The USDA has not released the reimbursement rates for the upcoming school year. Typically, that is in the second to third week in July. Once those reimbursement rates have been released, our office will notify you through the emails provided on the application. Another important reason to get your application submitted, especially if there's been a change. I believe our office typically sends in July to the email addresses that are in 24-25 until we get those applications approved. So expect to receive information about the reimbursement rates, and in that same email correspondence from our office, there will be information about setting adult meal pricing. We wait for that information to come out with the reimbursement rates to use as a guide for setting adult meal pricing. Your school receives no reimbursement for adult meals, and so those would be considered non-program foods. And so the pricing of a la carte items and adult meals need to be looked at annually to make sure that you are recovering your costs of providing those items. The school meal program cannot support the cost of a la carte foods or adult meals. So they need to be priced high enough so that they're not supported by federal dollars. The school wellness policy is a USDA requirement. I believe many of you have went through the process recently of the triennial assessment, and it's hard to believe, but that is rolling around again. We've had several extensions. That's why it was delayed, but the process is starting again for the triennial assessment. And so you'll be receiving communication from our office in regard to that a little later in the school year. Professional standards, food service director hiring standards. There's information on our website about what those professional standards include and hiring standards for new food service directors. Katie Parch, in a recent update, sent information about the hiring standards for new food service directors. Procurement, the USDA requirements for procurement are spelled out on our website, as well as more information will be coming out about the Buy American provision. There's been some changes for the upcoming school year, and that will be in a separate email communication from our office. So I would direct you to the compliance review checklist that we talked about at the beginning of the presentation to ensure that you are doing what you need to with each of the different areas. And so please make sure you take a look at that, utilize that checklist for your self-review. Next slide. Schools that are going to be having an administrative review and a procurement review in school year 25-26 have received correspondence from our office that came out in May. If you didn't receive that notification, you're not having an administrative or procurement review. Our staff conduct those reviews, as well as we contract with a company called CNR Resources to conduct reviews. The number of reviews that we do every year is typically between 60 and 70 reviews on average. They're very intense reviews, and you will receive more information if you're a school that is having a review in 25-26 after the start of school. You receive lots of notification ahead of time that your school will be having a review. Plus, you've already been notified by our office. Next slide. Upcoming training opportunities. We are out and about conducting trainings. Our next training is tomorrow, and that is our school food service training that is on site at ESU 3 in La Vista, followed by a number of other food service trainings. And then for our bookkeepers and claim contacts, we have our next training, as Erica mentioned earlier, July 29th. I would encourage you to sign up for that training if you have not already. We will be talking more in depth about meal eligibility and resources and answering questions that you may have. We have included the flyers for the training in your handout packet on page 108 and 109. We have another training scheduled for August 21st on offer versus serve, meal counting, and submitting the claim for reimbursement. And then in September, we will have an office hours training where we will be answering your questions and helping you prepare for verification. Next slide, our non-discrimination statement from USDA. And I believe we want you now to complete a brief survey for us about the effectiveness of our training. So you can use the QR code if you have a device that will link you to the survey.